Guys, something I have done for years and I have found it immensely helpful is to set a theme for the year. And I thought it would be fun for AJ and I to talk about our themes from last year, talk about future themes, where we are with all of that, and what are our themes and how does that all work? Welcome to the Get Business Savvy podcast. I'm George Black and this is AJ Bishop.
Yeah, when you brought this idea of themes up to me last year, it was the first time I'd ever heard of it. And we ended up settling on one that I actually ended up going to throughout the year. And it set a message for me throughout the year it set a theme for me throughout the year. And I really did like that. And I actually ended up using it. And I'm planning on using it again.
And what was your theme for last year, AJ?
We boiled it down to one word, which was focus.
Okay. And talk a little bit about how did we come up with that?
Yeah, at the end of 22, I had a lot of different things I was going on, and I was graduating college, and then I was looking into starting a new job with the entrepreneurial endeavor, with the podcast, and a couple other things going on as well. And it was just about, by the end of 2023, I shouldn't have all of this stuff going on. We should be focused down to the few things that matter most and get down to that before we start looking to expand what we're doing or anything like that. We got to get focused and get good at a few things that we're doing rather than spreading ourselves too thin. It's kind of how I thought of it. And also on a more personal level, just focusing on getting myself set up for the future.
Yeah. So lots of investment, lots of sorting out, lots of distraction. So your theme was focus.
Exactly.
So guys, a theme is a unifying idea that is a recurrent element throughout the year. So it keeps coming up and you use it throughout the year and it reminds you, oh yeah, that's what this year is about. So for AJ, it was focus. It's like, okay, so as he's moving, he's relocating, he's starting a new job. There's all this confusion, distraction. His theme is focus. It's like, oh yeah, that's the unifying idea for the year. And I'm getting more unfocused as he's going through this major transition in life. So AJ, did you find that the theme did what I just described a theme should do?
Oh, definitely. It made it, I was thinking of, as I was moving through the year, I was thinking about focusing, and especially as the expenses for transitioning to the new apartment in the new city kept adding up, it made it a lot easier for me to stomach it. I would just think of the theme of the year as to focus and to get set up, and next year's we won't have as many capital expenditures to get us set up as we've had this year. And yeah, I was basically thinking of all of the personal investments I had to make in the desk and the office setup and the couch and the table and every piece of apartment furniture you need. I've had to invest in. I've thought of that as just capital expenditures, one-time investments, going to last a long time. And in the future years, that's not going to draw down my income as much as it did this year.
Well, and besides just the income, the other thing is that last year you didn't have an apartment. You didn't start the year with an apartment. You moved into the job, you moved into the apartment, you relocated. This year you start, all that's done. Exactly. So you're focused. You are focused.
By the end of the year, I think I've achieved the theme of the year is we've got everything set up, and personal life, work life, everything is, I would say focused. So now it's time to pivot on to the next year.
So for me, the theme that and the unifying idea, and this was huge for me, was get out there. And I mentioned that in a previous podcast. What that meant was, what that looked like was get out there so people can begin to learn what I have to offer. And the podcast was absolutely central to that. And there was a lot of questions. So we had done 10 podcasts in 2022, and we just completed our last year 51 episodes, which was what we intended to do. That's huge. It was gigantic because, one, creating content on a weekly basis like that is huge. AJ, you and I went through several iterations of how to do this. Then you relocated. We've changed software. There was this one moment in the early part of last year where AJ says, this just isn't fun anymore. And I was like, you're right. It's not fun. And the whole idea was this needs to be fun. I mean, we've got to have something happening for us in all of this. And so it was a great moment of recalibration. And if I didn't have the theme get out there, I might have just quit. I hit some walls, and AJ, you did too, where it's like, and it's the creative walls, it's the blocks, it's the grind of every week we're doing another podcast. And we figured out new rhythms and new ways to make it fun. And so we figured out what works. We've also figured out a lot of things that don't work. And we changed the name, Get Business Savvy. So this has been a huge theme for me to just get out there.
And tying our two themes together with this podcast, getting out there, just keep putting on the episodes, but also getting focused of figuring out all the things that didn't work and focusing in on what does work.
Right. Yes. And so for me, there were some other elements to get out there too. One of it was I needed to build infrastructure inside of the website so that as I got out there, people had a way to get in touch with me or find out more. And if I didn't have the right platform, you couldn't go find my e-course. I'll talk about that in a minute. Or you couldn't find how to get in touch with me or learn about our other services like the podcast or the YouTube channel. So a lot of stuff had to be done on that level, kind of so behind the scenes so that I could get out there, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the fall, well, I did a couple of speaking engagements last year, and then in the fall went to a conference and some other events. So a good friend had turned me on to the dot card. I think I've mentioned the dot card, and it's just fantastic because it makes it so easy for me to exchange information, and we don't have any affiliate links or anything like that. Just go to dot card, and it's a great way to help people learn about you very, very quickly, exchange information, build contacts. And so I felt like, wow, that kind of, when I look at where I was at the beginning of the year to the end of the year, I'm like, yeah, I got out there, and it's not a comfortable thing for me to do. So I'm way more comfortable now than I was a year ago.
And as you're saying that, I'm also thinking about what we talked about last week. And I'm just kind of wondering, how does theme differ from direction? Or can you make that more clear?
Sure. So last week, we talked about where are you headed in 2024? And that's directional. And a theme is it will tie to that direction. So if you have a direction for 2024 and beyond, kind of like Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond, if you don't catch that reference. So a theme is this unifying idea that is a recurrent element that occurs throughout the year. So like focus or get out there, it keeps tying back to it. All right. Now, those things like my direction affected the get out there. So my direction is to use YouTube, to use podcasts, and so that we build a larger audience. So the direction is for us to impact, the overall direction is for us to impact entrepreneurs for good in their worlds. These themes, so the theme this year, the theme for last year was about, if I'm kind of, people are going to discover me, I'm going to have to get out there. I got to get out there on YouTube. I've got to do all these things. And so it helps you focus, particularly in the business side, strategies that you have for the year.
Okay. And so I want to be careful as I say this, but to me, this is kind of sounding like themes. They're not goals for sure, but they're kind of adjacent to goals in that themes help you with the steps that you're taking towards your ultimate direction. And almost a theme it doesn't even sound like it's actually a step, because focus included a lot of different steps. But it's almost like theme is the unifying message that ties all the steps together for that year so that you're working towards your ultimate direction.
That's right, AJ, because think of a theme like this. It's an easy way to remember what the strategies are. And I first picked up the concept on this. Well, I picked it up two different ways. But in the business settings with next level strategies, we started using it at Rackspace. And we had and they had actually been doing this as a way to communicate to the company what this year is about. Okay. So it's like, okay, I'll make up something simple. Like for Max in my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur, his next level is his first level because he's launching the company. That's kind of easy. So my theme for the year is launch it. So the thing, so it's not, it is a step, but it's not a step. But when I say launch it, or when I say Project Profit, that was one of the ones at Rackspace, we're focused on turning a profit this year. Then I have to look at all the strategies and realize, oh, that's the theme to the strategies. And what I call them are next level strategies that are 6 to 12 months. And you can know what those strategies are now. And it doesn't have to be calendar, but you can look at your strategies and go, yeah, you know what? There is a recurring theme, that a unifying idea that ties all these strategies together.
So Rackspace was the first place you got this concept then?
Well, I'm going to tell you something in just a second, but yes, tying the strategies to a theme, which I then added to the Next Level Navigator, is what I discovered was it communicates. It's all about communicating to the rest of the company, the rest of the team. And if you listen to last week's podcast, we quote a Gallup survey where it's like most people don't even think their leaders know where they're headed. Which means, and that same survey shows communication is like lacking in 85% of all companies. So it's a huge issue. So by theme, everyone knew, oh, that's what this year is about.
And that makes it easy to communicate. And even for the solopreneur listening to this, it communicates it to you and makes it crystal clear in 1 word, 2 words: Project Profit, focus, get out there. Just very quick little thing. Remember this throughout the year, communicates to yourself what you got to be working towards this year.
Yes. And so like for me, get out there was, I'm not talking to anybody else. I mean, I am the solopreneur here. And it's like, I needed that. It took me a few months to kind of like get that to register, but I have a year. I don't want to wait till November to start it. But the point is that, oh yeah, I have these strategies I'm working on, and here's the overarching theme. And it's like, whoa, I'm doing it.
So if you didn't get this entirely from this idea of a theme entirely from Rackspace,
right,
like you were talking about earlier, where did it all come from?
On a personal level, years before that, I had started pursuing a theme for what's this year about. Okay. And this is spiritual content. I'm going to just let you guys know. And I'm just going to be honest about kind of where this stuff came from. So there's something called, the way I would describe it, is advanced words. So I would ask God, specifically Jesus, like, what advanced words do you have for me in the coming year? As I first started doing this in the early years, it was an experiment. One, could I even hear, and be right? Or was I just making this up or whatever? So I held it all very loosely. But what I began to discover was, one, my hearing improved, and two, it was extraordinary how a word could come in and I didn't necessarily know, it didn't make any sense. But then I would see how it would kind of flow through. Years ago, one of those words was, I just got one word one year, joy. And it was a very difficult year. You didn't need to have a degree in strategic management to figure out this is going to be coming out of the previous year into that year was going to be really hard personally. And I'm like, joy was like made no sense. Brutal, difficult. Those would all been words that would have
Struggle, pain, suffering.
yeah. What I learned, and so this was like, and so I'm like, I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with this advanced word and just see what happens. And and maybe George didn't hear this right or whatever. Well, George did hear right. And it turns out what I learned in that year about joy was having joy in the midst of storms in your life. And that sustained me through the whole year. In fact, here's how the word came. I just remembered this. So I like Costco. We don't have any affiliate links, sadly. And they have different Christmas decorations each year. And they don't do it so much anymore. But I started noticing that every year they would have something that was like a unique Christmas thing, and I would buy it. So like one year they had these reindeer, one year they had these lights that I really white, kind of like snow lights or something. I don't know what you'd call them. Well, that particular year, so that Christmas before the year I got the word, they had this word joy. And it's hard to describe, but it was like you'd set the letters up, Joy, and they had all this kind of snow on them and snowmen and stuff like that. And it was very, Christmassy, January-ish and stuff like that. So I just left them up. And it was like, that's the word for the year. And it's not always, by the way, an advanced word doesn't mean a single word. It could be a phrase. It could be an idea. And I was like, that's how I got it. So I left those letters up the whole year just to remind me. And I'm like going through, and it was a very difficult year, but that word sustained me. And it was like, I was like, this is amazing. I didn't know you could have joy in the midst of storms in life. I just didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah. And how the advanced words just came to you. That's kind of perfect. And that's how focus almost came to me last year. And I might have an idea for the word I'm thinking of this year, but I'm not entirely sure yet. So maybe waiting for that to really reveal itself to me before I fully pursue it.
Yeah. So guys, a lot of what we're talking about is, and like with this word I got years ago on joy, or it's kind of like trying on, like for guys, like trying on a suit coat, or ladies, a really nice dress. And it's like, you just know it fits well. And you try on, like for guys, you try on different jackets, and some don't fit well, or they're cut a little funny or whatever. And then you put on this one jacket and it's like, whoa, this fits. This is, everything about, I like this. This is good. And that's kind of the way you just try the words and you can kind of tell. And so I suggest take the next few weeks and just try different words, whether it's you're coming from your strategies or advanced words, if you want to experiment with that. And I would really encourage it, and just see what happens.
Yeah, I love the analogy. And that's what I'm going to do with the word I have on right now. I guess I'll just try it on like a suit and see how I feel. And with that word, if I were to carry that into the new year, and maybe might come up with a new one then.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, it can go both ways. So you may hear something, you may have an idea for something. And for those spiritually inclined, you can go ask God, and, but this is not to be a big heavy. Okay. This is to be something really encouraging and creative and focusing.
And I think the word last year had the exact opposite of being heavy for me. It was actually, it helped lighten the load as I went through the year.
Yeah, that's true. A relief. I've got to say that was not for me. I did not want to get out there. But as I started doing it, I began to figure out ways to have fun with it and So it was necessary. And so, but it wasn't this big heavy. It was never that. It was never that. So we have some great resources to help you with all the things we're talking about with direction, themes, strategies. My book, The Next Level Entrepreneur, on Amazon is got the whole process in there, the Next Level Navigator process, and links below, you can get to it. Also, we have at livetrulyfree.com, if you just click on e-courses, the Next Level Navigator course. And during the month of January, we're offering that at a highly, highly discounted price. So you can find out all the details on the website. And I really, really would encourage you, if you haven't seen it, check out last week's episode on direction and where you're headed, because I know it'll be a big help. And until next week, may you live truly free.